Welcome to another video lecture by Utkalp Digital Classes. I am your tutor Raghav Chaturvedi, and today we are going to look at simple harmonic motion. The important topics that I will discuss today include periodic and oscillatory motion, linear simple harmonic motion, characteristics of simple harmonic motion, equations of a simple harmonic motion, graphical representation, SHM as a projection of uniform circular motion, energy of SHM, and methods to determine the time period. In the last section, we'll be talking about different kinds of pendulums, the compound pendulum, non-simple pendulum, and the torsional pendulum. We now begin our discussion about simple harmonic motion. So many motions in this universe are periodic. That is, they will repeat themselves at regular intervals of time. So simple harmonic motion will be the simplest form of periodic motion in which an object will oscillate between two spatial points for an indefinite period of time with no loss of mechanical energy. So I've mentioned this here. So it's my simple harmonic motion. It's a periodic motion with no loss of mechanical energy. Okay, and this is between any two spatial points. Okay, so before learning about the complicacies of a simple harmonic motion, let's start with what is a periodic motion. So when a body or a moving body or a moving particle repeats its motion after a definite path or along a definite path after regular intervals of time, okay, then I will say that that motion is periodic motion. Okay, note that it's along a definite path and it repeats itself after regular intervals of time. Okay. I'll call the time this repetition time as my time period t. Okay, and let's talk about oscillatory motion next. Note that periodic motion and oscillatory motion are not the same thing. Any to and fro motion will be known as oscillatory motion. So a particle which has oscillatory motion will move about a stable equilibrium point. So in oscillatory motion there will be a stable equilibrium point, let's say x naught, and the particle will move either to the left, right, up or down, or in 3 dimensions from this stable point, okay, which will be known as the equilibrium point. Oscillatory motion need not be periodic and it need not have a fixed extreme points. Okay, so but the special case of oscillatory motion which will turn into simple harmonic next is that oscillatory motions in which energy is conserved are also periodic. Okay, so if I have oscillatory motion and I add to this what, that conservation of energy, mechanical energy, if these two things are valid, then the motion will be periodic as well. An example for this is your pendulum on the wall clock. Okay, note that force, torque, okay, acting in oscillatory motion are known as restoring force or restoring torque. Similarly, you can have damped oscillations in which the energy consumed due to some resistive forces decrease the total mechanical energy, and thus the oscillation will stop. The first important thing that I want to talk to you about, the thing that you should notice, the oscillatory equation is given by F is equal to minus k into x to the power n, where k is a positive constant and x is the displacement from the mean position. Okay, this is the general oscillating equation. N are integers, positive integers. So if n is an even integer, I see that the force is always along the negative x-axis, whether x is positive or negative. Thus, this motion cannot be oscillatory. So whenever you're given a force of this form and n is an even integer, then there will be no oscillations. When n is odd, okay, when n is odd, then what you'll find is forces along the negative x-axis for x is greater than 0 and along the positive x-axis for x is less than 0, and it's 0 for x is equal to 0. This will be your oscillatory motion, and note that your simple harmonic motion is a specific case of this. If I place n is equal to 1 in the general equation, I get my equation for simple harmonic motion, which says F is equal to minus k times x. Okay. Before starting, we'll look at some simple types of SHM. SHM is simple harmonic motion. So there can be linear SHM or angular SHM. In linear, what will happen? A particle is moving between 2 points, let's say A and B, okay, and there is a to and fro motion between these two endpoints, and M is the center point or mean position. So AM is equal to BM, and this quantity is known as the amplitude of oscillation. So this point is oscillating between these two extreme points. Similarly, you can have angular SHM as well, when your body or the particle is free to rotate about a given axis and executing angular oscillations. Okay. In order to analyze this motion, I have shown you, or I have shorted down some things for you. So when the particle is moved away from the mean position, let's say this was my mean position, x is equal to 0. Okay. And released, what will happen? A force minus kx will come into play, or the restoring force will come into play, and it will pull it back towards the mean position. Now by the time it gets to the mean position, it has picked up some kinetic energy because of its motion, so it overshoots. So I start with this point, okay, I stretch it till this point, it gains some potential energy, then I leave it, there is a restoring force on it, it comes till this point. Now although it has come to the center point, it has some kinetic energy, so it overshoots, it goes till the next extreme. Okay, now this will stop again here, and there will be constantly it will be acted upon by another restoring force, so it will come back again to the center. This process will keep on repeating, okay, going to one side where force is acting, this force is trying to decelerate the object, then it will come back because it has kinetic energy left, it will again go in this direction, and this motion will keep on repeating. So what we see here, let me just summarize. So I start with my mean position at A, one of my extreme positions is B, other of my extreme position is C. So I start with A. In the A to B motion, in this motion, I'll mark this with another color, say green. So in the A to B motion, what do I see? My velocity is towards the right side, but it is continuously decreasing because there is a restoring force acting on it. As my body is moving away from this point, there is a force trying to bring it back to the mean position or the equilibrium position. When it reaches the point B, in this entire path, your acceleration is increasing. Acceleration in the left side, or the force is in the left side. Similarly, when you are going from B to A, in this position, your velocity is in the left side, okay, and your acceleration is in the left side again, but it is decreasing. Okay. Next, what do you have? You have that in the path from A to C, you have that your velocity is decreasing. Okay, it's in the left direction. Why is the velocity decreasing? Because there is a force acting. So I'll just give you the directions of force in each path. So in this path, the force is in this direction. In these paths, the force is in this direction. Okay. Similarly, from C to A, velocity is in the right side and it is increasing, and acceleration is in the right side but it is decreasing. This is extremely useful, and we'll basically now tell you about the necessary and sufficient conditions for SHM. Before that, you should know the basic things, which are: what is the time period? Time period is the smallest time interval after which the oscillatory motion gets repeated. Time period is 2 pi by mu, or 2 pi by omega, sorry. Okay. In these you can see what is the, from this diagram itself you can see what these things are. So you start by A, okay, and your velocity is in this direction. Okay, you continue the path, okay, and you see that when you reach this point again, okay, at this point again you have the same type of motion, okay, exactly same type of motion. So this is the smallest time interval, okay, after which this oscillatory motion is getting repeated. So after this point again, this will again happen. After this point, this will again happen. So this will be your time period. Okay, and similarly, you can define your frequency as well. So frequency of a simple harmonic motion, okay, denoted by f or mu, is nothing but 1 by time period. Okay, it is equal to the number of complete oscillations per unit time. Next is, what is your amplitude? So your extreme position minus your mean position is given by your amplitude. Okay, It is the maximum value of displacement of the particle from its mean position. Then you have something known as the mean position, which I have been talking about. It is the position where net force on the particle is zero. Okay. Extreme point is where the net velocity of the particle is zero. So as we talked about springs before, so what happens in springs? You have an initial point x naught, okay, unstretched length, and then you stretch it to some point. It will gain some potential energy, okay, but at this point what will happen? Constantly a force or restoring force is acting on it on the left side. As soon as you release it, it gains an acceleration, okay. It starts to go in this direction, and then it oscillates between any 2 points, okay. This is the length x, so it will oscillate between these 2 points. Spring is a very good example of simple harmonic motion. Let's just move forward. I'll give you the necessary and sufficient conditions for SHM. First of all, my omega is given by root of k by m, where k is the SHM constant in that equation. This was my equation. My force should be equal to negative of constant into the displacement. So my basically this means is what this means is I can write my acceleration to be in the opposite direction to my displacement from here, okay. And if I just open up these equations, I simply see that this gives rise to a simple equation of this form, okay, or it gives rise to the final form that I want you to remember, that d square x by dt square plus omega square x is equal to 0, okay. So in this equation you can easily see what omega square stands for, okay. From here it comes that omega square is equal to k by m, okay. So omega square is k by m, sorry, omega is equal to root of k by m. You should note this one down, okay. Time period and frequency, I think you already know about these things, so there's no real point to note these down. So let's talk about the displacement. So your displacement will always be given by something of this sort in SHM, okay. It will be given by some amplitude, where a is the amplitude or the maximum displacement that the object can have. So if the object is oscillating between 2 points, let's say a and b, so this distance is your amplitude, okay. Now I have my x given to be a sine omega t plus phi. So you can easily see from here that I can calculate other things as well. First of all, I can calculate the velocity of the particle. So if x is given, I can just derivate the displacement to get the velocity. So it's the basic, because it's the rate of change of particle displacement. Okay. Note that these are all talking about the displacement of the particle and the velocity of the particle. There it comes out to be a omega cos omega t plus phi. Note this entire thing that is inside, it is equal to your phase, okay. At time t is equal to 0, you have a phase equal to phi, okay. So this is called, phi is known as your initial phase. So in the question sometimes they will just say the initial phase is something, so that implies that they're giving you the value of phi, okay. Next you can easily see that v can also be written as omega times root of a square minus x square. So we can totally be written in the terms of the amplitude, maximum displacement, and the displacement at that particular point. This is a very important equation. This is also a very important equation. I want you to keep these in mind. You can easily see that at the mean position where x is equal to 0, velocity is maximum. So V max is nothing but omega into a, and at the extreme position your V min is equal to 0, because here x is equal to a. You can find the graph of the velocity with the displacement x as well. How do you do that? Just rearranging the terms from this equation number 1, you see that it forms an equation of an ellipse, okay. So you have a on the x-axis and omega a right here. Similarly, you can find the acceleration as well if you take the double derivative. So it's the particle's acceleration at any instant. You take the derivative, you find that it is of this form, but this is actually equal to, acceleration is equal to minus omega square x. This is the equation that I want you guys to remember. Okay, so it's in the opposite direction of your displacement vector, and negative sign shows that acceleration is always directed towards the mean position. Okay, at mean position x will be equal to 0, so acceleration will be minimum. So my acceleration minimum is equal to 0. Okay, and at extreme position my mod of acceleration is equal to omega square into a. You can easily draw a graph for this as well. Okay, uh, I've shown you uh, the different things right over here. First is your displacement versus time. Next is what? Next is your velocity versus time, and the other thing is your acceleration versus time. You can easily see I marked the wavelength as well. Wavelength, how do you calculate wavelength? It's between crest to crest or trough to the trough. Okay, or what is the time period? Time period is nothing but again the time between two crests or time between two troughs. Okay, it will be given by t in this equation. You should see that all the three quantities, displacement, velocity and acceleration, vary harmonically with time, having the same period. The maximum velocity is omega times the amplitude. Okay, it is equal to omega into a. The acceleration is omega square times the displacement of amplitude. Okay, and note that in the SHM the acceleration is ahead of velocity by a phase angle of pi by 2. So my velocity is ahead of displacement by pi by 2, and acceleration is ahead of velocity by pi. So that is why there is a negative sign. So sometimes in the paper your SHM will be given as a projection of uniform circular motion. What this really means is, if you look closely into this circle, what you'll find is, let this circle be at an origin O. Okay, let Q be a point on the circle. This is the particle that is moving. Or so okay. So you have two components. Let's say I have projections of Q on the horizontal diameter that I have made, and there is a vertical diameter that I have made. Okay. So the horizontal on, let's say, BC of this point Q is somewhere here. Okay, I'll mark this point right here. Now as this Q point starts to go around the circle, let's say in clockwise direction. Okay, so when it starts to go around this circle in this fashion, what happens is, if at this point I try to find what is the projection on BC, it will be somewhere here. At this point, what will be the projection? It will be somewhere here. Similarly, I can make the projections at different points. And at the point B, it will be right here. So what you see is, as your particle is moving like this on the circle, okay, that particle Q, the projection on the x-axis, let's say the axis that was BC, it goes from this point, right point, to the left extreme point. Okay. Now when the particle starts to go up, so my projection becomes here, goes up, projection comes here, goes up, projection comes here, okay, goes here, projection comes here. So what really happens is, when the particle goes from here to here, okay, my projection on the x-axis is going in this direction till the end. Okay, when the particle starts the other way around, the particle goes like this, my projection on the x-axis is going like this. So when the particle is revolving in circular motion, my the projection of that particle, let's say on the x-axis, will keep on oscillating between the two endpoints. So it will go till one endpoint, then it will go to the other one, with O being the center. Similar thing will happen with the y projection as well. So you have the particle here. Similarly, as I said that there is a x projection, you can have a diameter like this, and this, let's say this point is at this point, this is the projection here. At this point this is the projection, at this point this is the projection. Okay, so when it's moving like this, so let's say this is my projection here. After a time t, my projection comes here. After some time t, the projection comes here. Okay, when it starts this motion backwards, my projection comes here. So similarly what happens is, in the motion like this, my projection moves till the end. In the motion like this of the particle, my projection moves like this. So this also executes a simple harmonic motion around the center. So in order to do these questions, there is a 5-step simple process. Okay, first is assume that the amplitude that is given to you is equal to the radius of the circle. Okay, or if the radius has been given to you, that is the amplitude of oscillation. Next, assume that a particle is rotating in a circular path, moving with a constant omega, same as that of the SHM in clockwise direction. Okay, then you should note that the angle made by the particle at time t is equal to 0 will give you the phase constant. Okay, the phase constant phi. With this, note that your horizontal component of velocity of particle will give you a velocity of particle performing SHM. So the horizontal component of the velocity in this diagram will give you the velocity of particle in SHM. Similarly, the horizontal component of acceleration will give you the acceleration of particle in SHM. Okay, these things should be kept in mind while doing the question. You can see from the figure itself that in this type of SHM, for example, for the values that I have given, my velocity is omega cos omega t plus phi. Okay, a omega cos omega t plus phi. Similarly, acceleration can also be found like this. From the figure itself, you can find the acceleration, you can find the velocity of SHM as well. Next, let's talk about the energies in SHM. So I have given you all the energies that you should take a note of. First is your kinetic energy. So kinetic energy is half mv square is equal to half m a square omega square cos square omega t plus phi, because I'm just substituting the value of v, and this can as my v can be written as omega into root of a square minus x square. So I get my kinetic energy as this. There's nothing new that is happening here. Okay, you can see that the maximum value of kinetic energy is what? It is half into k max will come out to be half k a square. This will happen at x is equal to 0, and k min will be at x is equal to a. Okay, similarly for these things you can find the potential energy as well. So let ux be the potential energy of the system when the displacement is x. Now as the change in potential energy corresponding to a conservative force is the negative of the work done by the force, so I can easily write that ux minus ump is equal to minus of w minus of the work done by conservative force is equal to half kx square. So potential energy is equal to half kx square, where kx is the displacement. Okay, you can choose the potential energy to be 0 when the particle is at the mean position. So this mean position energy can be chosen to be 0. So you can easily write that the potential energy is nothing but half kx square or half m omega square x square. Both these equations are prominent. You can even split x into its original form and write u is equal to half m omega square a square sine square omega t plus phi. Note that all these equations will be beneficial when they ask you about how kinetic energy or potential energy varies with different quantities such as omega or a. Note that both kinetic energy and potential energy vary with omega square. Okay, so they depend on omega square. If you sum these two, kinetic and potential, you'll get half omega m omega square a square as the value. This is your total mechanical energy. This should be noted as well. Note that at a time t, your total energy will be given by this value. So this is giving you the total energy at any instant t. Okay. let's look at this energy curve. What do you have here? So the top line, this is your energy versus time. Here I have shown you the total energy on the top. Okay, then your dotted line is your kinetic energy, sorry, potential energy, and your solid line is your kinetic energy. So what you see from here is uh, at the initial position, or at the mean position, what you get is you have zero potential energy and maximum kinetic energy. Okay, this is after you initially you have nothing. After you have stretched it to some point, or okay, then when you just release it, then at this point the kinetic energy will be maximum. This will convert to potential energy maximum. Then potential energy will again convert to kinetic energy maximum. Then potential energy maximum. This will go on. Okay, but the sum will remain a constant, which I have shown you here. So the sum is remaining constant. I can plot my potential energy, kinetic and total energy as a function of displacement as well from the mean position. So this is your mean position. This is your amplitude in the positive x direction, negative x direction. You see that E is a constant, the total energy is the constant, but the kinetic energy and potential energy is very like this. So at the ends, kinetic energy is 0. At the mean point, kinetic energy increases, again decreases, and U goes in the other way. Now I'll describe to you the method to determine the time period and angular frequency in simple harmonic motion in 5 steps. This will be done using an example. So I'm taking the example of a mass that is hung by a spring from a roof. So the 5 steps include the following. First of all, in the first step, find the stable equilibrium position. At this point, there will be no net force or torque on the system, and the potential energy will be minimum. Okay, which this position is also known as the mean position. So this is what I have taken to be the mean position, where this is my natural length, this is my mean position given by x naught. Okay, for different questions your mean position will be different. So in the second case, in the second step, what you do is you just write down the mean position. Okay, and the force relation equation for this, you for the mean position. So here I have my force relation as kx naught is equal to mg, because at this position there is no net force on the system. So this is your this is your main start equation. What you do next is you displace the particle from the mean position via displacement x. This is what I do in this figure. So my net displacement now is k into x plus x naught from the natural length. Okay. Then what you do is you write the net force in the displaced position. This is mg minus k into x plus x naught. Now what you do in the final step is you reduce this equation in the fourth one, to the form f is equal to minus some constant k times x, or the displacement that you made. Okay, either by using the equation that you already had or by using binomial theorem. Also note that this I am doing for linear SHM. For angular SHM you will have to find your torque in the terms of minus k theta. Okay. For the spring case that I have here, first of all, if my time period will be this for everything, but for the spring case I have that my k SHM is nothing but my spring constant. Okay, so my time period for spring constant in SHM is, so the time period for a spring oscillating spring is 2 pi root m by k. Okay, you should note that if we apply constant force on the string, then time period t will always be the same. So time period t will always take the same value if the force applied is the same on the spring system. There can be multiple examples for this as well, but we'll quickly go and first look at some other important things, which is how your time period is actually changing. So the time period that I told you about right now, okay, uh, that had t is equal to 2 pi root m by k. Okay, now for a pendulum you see that this becomes t is equal to 2 pi root l by g effective. Okay, and For your compound pendulum, this becomes T is equal to 2 pi root I by mgl, and similarly you can write this for uh, different things as well, for rotational one as well, for which it becomes T is equal to 2 pi root I by c. Okay, this comes under the condition of angular SHM. So for angular SHM, what do you have? You have torque is equal to minus k theta. Okay, and where k is the SHM constant, theta is the angular displacement. For angular SHM, you will have a similar equation like real SHM. Plus omega square theta is equal to 0. Okay, where omega will be equal to how much? Root of k by I. Okay. I is the moment of inertia of the body or particle about a given axis. So you might have questions from these as well, and the steps taken to find the time period will be exactly similar. Okay, and note that when I'm trying to find the time period, the G effective comes into play when your pendulum is in an accelerating frame. Okay, G effective is nothing but the effective acceleration due to gravity in reference frame mod G minus A. Okay, where A is the acceleration of the point of suspension with respect to ground. Okay, uh, first of all, there should be a condition for applying this formula. G minus A, mod of G minus A should be constant. Okay, if the acceleration is upwards, if the acceleration of the reference frame is upwards, then G effective is equal to G plus A. If the acceleration is downwards, then G effective is equal to G minus A. Okay, so instead of using normal G here, you will be using either this or you will be using this. You can easily even find the time lost or gained using these quickly. So you can easily find delta t prime is equal to delta t by t into t. Okay. So this is the time lost or gained in a given time small t. With this in hand, uh, I did mention something about the compound pendulum. I should tell you what a compound pendulum really looks like. So I have a rigid body, let's say something like this, or something like this. I have a rigid body which is suspended from an axis, and it is made to about that axis, made to oscillate about that axis. Okay, so I have my center of mass denoted by C. I have some point of suspension denoted by, let's say, S. Okay, and L is the distance between the point of suspension and the center of mass. Okay, so when I oscillate it about this axis, what will I get? I will get that this length is L. There are two forces acting on it, mg sine theta, and I have another force, mg. This is mg cos theta. Okay, then using the same restoring torques that are there for this pendulum, you will be using the restoring torque equation mgl sine theta. Okay, from the mean position, and so for sine theta is small, so torque is nothing but mgl theta. Okay, now torque is I alpha. So using this, you can easily write that A is equal to minus mg L by I into theta. Note that this is similar to the form A is equal to minus uh, omega square x. Okay, so omega square becomes mgl by I, or from here you can easily get the value of your time period. So you should note these time periods down. Okay, and these will be essential in the examination because sometimes you might not get time to derive this. The last one that I told you about was for a torsional pendulum. Okay, I can show you briefly what a torsional pendulum looks like. In a torsional pendulum, say an extended object is suspended at the center. Uh, I'll just make another one here. So in this pendulum, what do you see? You see an extended object which is suspended at the center via light torsion wire. Now this torsion wire is essentially inextensible, the wire that I made here. Okay, but this can easily twist about its own axis. Okay, so when the lower end of the wire is rotated by a slight amount, okay, the wire applies a restoring torque, causing the body to oscillate rotationally when released. Now here also the rotating torque is how much? Let's say this is my center, this is my axis x. So here the torque will act, torque is equal to minus c theta. Okay, so I alpha is equal to minus c theta, where I is the moment of inertia about the vertical axis and c is something known as the torsional constant. From here you can easily see that the time period turns out to be 2 pi root I by c. So a point mass is subjected to two simultaneous sinusoidal displacements in the x direction, where one is equal to a sine omega t and x2 is equal to a sine omega t plus 2 pi by 3. Adding a third sinusoidal displacement, x3 is equal to b sine omega t plus phi, brings the mass to complete rest. Now what are the values of b and phi? So let me just write the summations of the first two. X prime is equal to a sine omega t plus I have a sine of omega t plus 2 pi by 3. So using the trigonometric laws for the addition of sines, I can simply write this as 2 times a into sine omega t plus pi by 3 into cos of pi by 3. Okay, so because cos of pi by 3 is half, I have this equal to a into sine of omega t plus pi by 3. Okay, so because a third displacement will bring this back to rest, that implies my b should be equal to a and there should be a phase difference of pi between these two. So if this was my equation for the resultant of the first two, then my phi is equal to 4 pi by 3, which is pi plus pi by 3. Let's look at a question. The xt graph of a particle undergoing simple harmonic motion is given to you. The acceleration of the particle at t is equal to 4 by 3 seconds is what? So to find the acceleration, you must have a mathematical form of your displacement. So from this graph, what can you see? First of all, it's a sinusoidal oscillation because it's SHM. Next, you can easily see what the wavelength is. You can easily see what the time period is. So what is the time period? Time period is the distance between these two, or let's say the distance between here to this point. So first of all, from this graph, you can easily see that time period is equal to 8 seconds. If I have the time period, what can I find? I can easily find the omega. So omega is equal to pi by 4. Done. Now, what is the amplitude? You see that the amplitude is nothing but 1. So if I have to write my equation for SHM, it is 1 into sine into omega t. So omega is pi by 4, so pi by 4 into t. So the first step is done. You have the displacement vector for you. Now how do you calculate the acceleration? You take the double derivative of this, okay, or you can write that acceleration is equal to minus omega square into x. Okay, but you are supposed to find the acceleration of the particle at a particular point t is equal to 4 by 3. So using this formula, I can write my acceleration is equal to negative of pi square by 16 into what is x? It is sine 4 pi sine into pi by 4 into t. Now here the t is given to be 4 by 3 seconds. So 4 by 3. So I am left with sine of pi by 3 inside. Okay. This gives me the net answer as minus pi square into by 16 into root 3 by 2, or this is minus root 3 pi square by 32. So D is my correct answer. Now let's look at another question. A block of mass small m lying on a smooth horizontal surface is attached to a spring of negligible mass of spring constant K. The other end of the spring is fixed, as shown in the figure. Now the block is initially at rest in the equilibrium position. If now the block is pulled with a constant force F, then the maximum speed of the block will be given by which of these? So first of all, you should note that the maximum speed is at the mean position or equilibrium position. So maximum speed is equal to where? I'll just zoom these and write. So maximum speed happens at the equilibrium position. Okay, so what do I have? At the equilibrium position, my force is equal to restoring force is kx. With the negative, I am just writing the magnitude of the force. So that implies I can write my x is equal to my force divided by k, where k is the spring constant. Now from work energy theorem, I can write that the work done by the force plus the work done by the spring is equal to the change in the kinetic energy. Okay. From here, we can easily write, using these two, we can easily write that force, let's say at a point x, minus half, sorry, force into x, because f dot x is the force. This gives me the work done by the force, f dot dr, into half kx square is equal to half mv square minus 0, because initially the kinetic energy was 0. Using this, I can simply write that f into the substituting the value of x, f by k, minus half into k into f by k whole square is equal to half into m into v square. Therefore, using these, I can simply write that half f square by k is equal to half mv square, or I can write that my maximum velocity is nothing but f by root of mk. So let's look at the question. Two masses m and m by 2 are connected at the ends of a massless rigid rod of length L. The rod is suspended by a thin wire of torsional constant K at the center of mass of the rod mass system. Okay, so this point is at the center of mass. Because the torsional constant K, the restoring torque is tau is equal to K theta for angular displacement theta. So when you twist it by an angle theta, there will be a restoring torque on it equal to K times theta. If the rod is rotated by theta naught and released, the tension in it when it passes through its mean position will be given by what? So first of all, you are supposed to find the mean position. To do that, this is said that it is at the center of mass of the rod mass system. So how do you calculate it? The center of x coordinate of center of mass is m by 2. Let me assume that I am taking this to be my 0, 0. Okay, so I have m by 2 into 0 plus m into L divided by m by 2 plus m, because the rod is massless. So from here you can see that the center of mass is at a distance of 2L by 3 from the first point. So uh, uh, this distance is 2L by 3 and this distance is L by 3. So you found the point at which it is connected now. So we can proceed with the next part of the question. So with the center of mass given, uh, let's talk about the next thing. I'll try to redraw this again. So let's say this was your original position. Okay, you had a mass m by 2 here. We had a mass equal to m here. Now you are giving it a small angular displacement equal to theta naught. Okay, so my mass m by 2 reaches here and my mass m is right over here. Okay, now uh, there will be on this mass, let's consider the mass m. So there will be a tension in this mass in this direction. Okay, and this tension will try to provide the centripetal force as well. So first of all, the tension can be written as mv square by r, where this is taken as your 0 point. So about this point, what is your radius r? My radius is nothing but L by 3. So tension is equal to mv square by L by 3. Now I need to see what the velocity is. So if I have given a displacement theta naught, okay, so I can easily write that my velocity is nothing but L by 3, which is this distance, L by 3 into theta naught. So L by 3 into theta naught will give me basically this arc that is there into my omega, okay, or into the frequency that is there. Now with this, I'll write this as omega right now. Okay, this is the value that I get for my velocity. Now I already know. Okay, I'll write this as omega because I described it like this. So I have my velocity, I have my tension relation. So for getting the velocity, I need to know my frequency, angular frequency. For the torsional pendulum, it is equal to k divided by I, where k is the torsional constant. So here what you'll have is my tension is already known to me now. So I can substitute first of all the value of velocity in the tension. So I get that my tension can be written as 3 into m divide, I'm writing it down for you. So it is equal to 3 m by L into 1 by 3 theta naught into omega whole square. Okay, so I get my value of t that I want to find. I can just open this up again. So this will give me a value of m theta naught square into L by 3 into k by I, because I have just substituting the value of omega now. This is the value of tension that I want to find. Okay, now you should know what is the moment of inertia here. So to calculate the moment of inertia, you have a massless rod, so that will not give you any contribution. So my moment of inertia is nothing but m by 2 into m plus, sorry, this will be multiplied. So I have my, I'll write this again. So I have my moment of inertia of this system is what? It is m by 2 into m divided by m by 2 plus m into L square. This gives me 1 by 3 ml square. With this in hand, I can just substitute it back into the equation. So my tension becomes m theta naught square into L by 3 into K by 1 by 3 ml square. 1 by 3 ml square. Simplifying this, I easily find that my tension is nothing but K theta naught square by L, which is your, I think, the third option that is there. K theta naught square by L.